case files where I, your AI host Denzel Jakson, decode crime in high definition. Today's story: the unsolved mystery of D.B. Cooper. A light rain pelted the metal skin of Northwest Orient Flight 305 as it cut through the stormy sky. Inside, a man in a dark business suit and black tie coolly adjusted his sunglasses, a thick briefcase by his side. Moments later, the rear door of the Boeing 720-27 opened mid-flight, and this mysterious passenger leaped into the freezing night, $200,000 in cash strapped to his body. He vanished without a trace, swallowed by darkness and legend. This isn't the plot of a Hollywood thriller, but a real case. The 1971 hijacking by an unknown man. The press dubbed D. Cooper. It remains one of America's greatest unsolved true crime mysteries. A story as perplexing as it is thrilling. Composite sketches of D.B. Cooper, the unknown man who hijacked Flight 305 in 1971 and vanished after parachuting out of the plane. Background: the hijacking. On the afternoon of November 24th, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving, a quiet, nondescript man, calling himself Dan Cooper, purchased a one-way ticket from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. He took seat 18C on Flight 305, a Boeing 727, with 36 other passengers aboard. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a note to Flight Attendant Florence Schaffner. At first, she assumed it was just the phone number of a lonely businessman. Then Cooper whispered, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Inside his briefcase, he had shown a glimpse of wires and red sticks. The note demanded $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes to be delivered when the plane landed. Immediately, the flight crew alerted authorities while pretending nothing was amiss to the passengers. The plane circled Puget Sound for hours as arrangements were made. In Seattle, the FBI scrambled to gather the ransom. $20 bills unmarked. And the parachutes. Around 5:45 p.m., Flight 305 landed at SeaTac Airport under Cooper's orders. True to his word, the hijacker allowed all passengers and 2 of the flight attendants to leave in exchange for the money and parachutes. With the cash and gear aboard, Cooper retained a few crew members and instructed the pilots to refuel and fly toward Mexico City. Keeping a low altitude of 10,000 feet and flying slow, around 170 knots. He knew technical details. The 727's rear aft stairway could remain open in flight, and he even specified they keep the landing gear down and cabin unpressurized. Minutes after takeoff, around 8:00 p.m., as the jet flew south over the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, Cooper did the unthinkable. He lowered the rear stairway and jumped into the void. When Flight 305 eventually landed safely in Reno, Nevada, for a planned refuel stop, the crew discovered the rear stairs open and their enigmatic hijacker gone. Outside, law enforcement searched frantically along the plane's flight path, but there was no sign of Cooper. vanished into the night, leaving only a few clues behind. The emptied parachute packets, a black clip-on tie hide removed, and the legend of D.B. Cooper. The mystery and the evidence. What happened to D.B. Cooper after he leapt from the plane? This question has haunted investigators for decades. The FBI immediately launched an extensive investigation, codenamed NORJAK, Northwest Hijacking. They mapped the likely drop zone to be a rugged area of southwestern Washington state, near the Lewis River north of Portland. Paratroopers and police scoured the wilderness, yet no body or parachute was found. Given the circumstances, many began to doubt whether Cooper could have survived the jump at all. The weather that night was poor, and the ground dangerously inhospitable. A mix of thick woods and perilous terrain with temperatures near freezing. Cooper jumped wearing only a business suit, thin loafers, and a raincoat. Not exactly ideal attire for a night parachute landing into rough country. Crucially, the parachute he chose was an older model military chute that could not be steered. If he was not an expert skydiver, and evidence from how he handled the jump suggested he wasn't, his odds of a safe landing were slim. The FBI's lead agent on the case, Ralph Himmelsbach, famously theorized that Cooper was not an expert and likely harmed, or worse, during the fall, given the conditions. This theory gained even more traction 9 years later. In February 1980, a young boy digging a fire pit along the Columbia River on a beach called Tinaba made a stunning discovery. Packets of badly decayed $20 bills buried in the sand. In total, about $5,800 was recovered. Serial numbers on the bills matched the ransom money Cooper had taken. It was the first evidence to surface since the night of the hijacking. How did the money end up there? The location was over 20 miles downstream from the suspected drop zone. The discovery raised more questions than answers. Some speculated the money fell into the river during Cooper's descent, or was later carried downstream. Others thought Cooper, if he survived, might have buried some cash, or it could have been an elaborate plan. But no additional clues turned up. Aside from those battered bills and the black tie, from which investigators later pulled a partial DNA sample, nothing of Cooper or the remaining $194,000 was ever found. Fragments of $20 bills recovered in 1980 by a boy along the Columbia River bank. Forensic analysis confirmed these bills were part of D.B. Cooper's ransom money. With no conclusive evidence of Cooper's fate, the mystery deepened. The FBI, after 45 years of fruitless investigation, formally suspended active inquiry in 2016. Officially, the Bureau leans toward the theory that Cooper did not survive the jump. Yet, tantalizingly, no corpse was ever found to prove that grim fate, and no one ever reported finding a lost skydiver in the woods. This uncertainty has kept the case very much alive in the public imagination. Suspects and theories. Over the years, authorities and amateur sleuths have investigated countless suspects in the Cooper case. By the 5-year anniversary, over 800 potential suspects had been examined, and eventually more than 1,000 serious suspects were considered in total. The pool of possibilities ranged from ex-military paratroopers to petty criminals with aviation knowledge to ordinary citizens who raised suspicion due to sudden wealth or cryptic comment. Some people even confessed on their deathbeds, claiming, "I was D.B. Cooper." Investigators chased down each lead, but most turned out to be hoaxes, attention seekers, or cases of mistaken identity. One favored suspect among law enforcement was Richard Floyd McCoy Jr., an Army veteran. In April 1972, just 5 months after Cooper's heist, McCoy pulled off an eerily similar skyjacking. He hijacked a plane, demanded $500,000, then parachuted out over Utah. McCoy was caught and arrested within days, which led some to speculate that Cooper had struck again and finally been captured. Indeed, McCoy looked the part and had parachute experience. However, the FBI eventually ruled McCoy out as Cooper's identity, citing mismatches in physical description. The flight attendants did not recognize McCoy, and other evidence. Decades later, McCoy's name resurfaced in headlines. In 2023, 2 of his children, now adults, claimed their late father McCoy was D.B. Cooper. Cleaning out their family home, they reported finding an old parachute hidden in a shed, which they believe was the very chute Cooper used. They turned it over to the FBI, hoping to prove their astonishing claim. While an intriguing development, this theory remains unconfirmed, and many experts remain skeptical given the prior evidence against McCoy. Another compelling lead came from a deathbed confession. In 1995, a former WW2 paratrooper turned criminal named Duane Weber was dying in Florida when he whispered to his wife, "I am Dan Cooper." His widow, Jo Weber, had never heard that name before. Months later, she came across a book on the D.B. Cooper case, and was stunned to find handwritten notes in the margins, matching her husband's handwriting. She recalled a strange trip with Duane to the Pacific Northwest in 1979, during which he took a walk alone on a riverside beach, Tina Bar, the very spot where the money would be found a year later. The circumstantial evidence prompted the FBI to investigate Weber. He did fit the general description and had an outlaw background. For a time, it seemed the mystery might finally be solved. But fingerprint and DNA comparisons did not link Weber to any of the hijacking evidence. The FBI ultimately eliminated him as the hijacker due to lack of any concrete proof, leaving Jo Weber's eerie story as yet another tantalizing footnote in the case. Many other names have surfaced. Kenneth Christiansen, a former Northwest Airlines employee and trained paratrooper, was suspected by his own brother and even became the subject of a book. Christiansen did share some habits with Cooper. Both loved bourbon and cigarettes, and one flight attendant thought he bore a resemblance. But Christiansen was shorter and lighter than eyewitness descriptions of Cooper, and the FBI found no direct evidence against him. Another theory pointed to an eccentric ex-military pilot named Barbara Dayton, who allegedly confessed to friends that she disguised herself as a man and executed the hijacking out of anger at the aviation industry. And within the Special Forces community, some whispered that a daredevil Green Beret named Ted Braden, who had a death wish and hundreds of parachute jumps under his belt, could have been Cooper. The speculation is endless. Was Cooper a rogue Vietnam vet, a professional crook, or just an everyman with a wild idea? Each suspect adds a new twist, yet no theory has definitively cracked the case. Conclusion: an enduring mystery. It has now been over half a century since D.B. Cooper vanished into the stormy skies, and we are no closer to the truth of his identity or fate. The FBI closed its active case in 2016 without resolution, making this the only unsolved case of air piracy in commercial aviation history. Commercial aviation history. Still, the legend of D.B. Cooper lives on in countless books, documentaries, and the fervent work of citizen sleuths. Amateur investigators meticulously pore over old evidence, from the particles analyzed on Cooper's clip-on tie to the serial numbers of the missing bills, hoping for a breakthrough. Others theorize that Cooper might have survived the fall and lived quietly under a new identity, chuckling to himself whenever he saw a news segment about the daring heist. Some believe he died in the wilderness on that fateful night, his remains simply never found in the vast forest. In the end, the case of D.B. Cooper remains a tantalizing riddle. Was he a criminal mastermind who got away with the perfect crime, or a desperate man whose risky escape outpaced his luck? The truth is still up there, drifting somewhere in the clouds of speculation. As long as the question, who was D.B. Cooper, continues to echo without answer, this case will continue to fascinate and frustrate in equal measure. The final chapter has yet to be written, and until it is, the mystery of D.B. Cooper endures, inviting all of us to imagine the possibilities.